Now in continuation with our object casting, let us further see the options that are available. Now we have already seen that superclass can be assigned the subclass object, whereas the reverse generates an error. That is, if I say C1 is equal to P1, this generates an error. However, there is small extension to this. If I write the casting C in before P1, this program compiles. But when I run this program, there is a class cast exception. And if I uncomment this P1 equal to C1, I run this program, there is absolutely no error. It compiles as well as runs perfectly okay. So we'll just see why this is running, whereas we have already said that subclass cannot be assigned a superclass object, but it only works when we have this assignment into picture. So we'll go back to our example. Now we have seen that P1 equal to C1, it works. So I have assigned P1 to this object. Now, however, just for the understanding purpose, we'll see when we assign P1 the object C1, it is within restriction that it can only access this part. So even though P1 has the entire object assigned to it, it can only access the part which is marked red. So it cannot access the entire object even though it has the entire object available to it, but it can only access this part. But still, because P1 has the entire object available to it, we can at any point of time take the entire object away from it. Now what I mean by this is, when I say P1 equal to C1, we have P1 assigned the entire object subject to the visibility condition that P1 can only access this red marked portion of the object. Now when I say P1 and put a cast in front of it, say C, so when I write a casting of C in front of P1, this means that what I am trying to do is, instead of this small portion being active, when I write C in front of P1, this means I am bringing the entire object into picture. Now this entire object comes into picture instead of only the subclass part. So P1 is now cast into type C. This entire object is in picture, and now I can assign this to any new reference of class C. I can say C2, or I can even assign C1 to this object. So when we already pass the superclass and object of subclass, we can reclaim that object from P1 and assign it a different way. If we do not do this assignment, that means P1 no longer holds an object of type C. So it only has this object in picture. So it can never bring this object so as to be casted to a type C. It can only be casted to a type C in case it is holding an object of class C. So P1 equal to C1 is a requisite before you can do C2 is equal to P1, because when you write P1, you are only looking at this portion. When we say cast to type C, we are looking at the entire object, and this entire object can then be referred to another reference of type C. So this is how the casting works. I'll just put down in short. P1 equal to C1 works perfectly okay, all conditions. C1 equal to P1 never works. However, C1 equal to P1 with a cast to C class works only if we have previously assigned P1 an object of class C1. So I hope this has clarified the object casting procedure.